The Puma Fast R-Nitro versus the Asics MetaSpeed Sky Plus. Which one is the better race day shoe? Let's compare and contrast. So before we get into the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're already subscribed watching the content. Thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Strava for all sorts of other updates and things like that. So without further ado, let's begin. Specs of the shoes respectively up here for each one. And what's prompted me to make this comparison video is in my quest to find the best race day shoe for the Chicago Triathlon Triple Challenge that I'm doing and the Chicago Marathon. I'm beginning to recognize that the Nike brand shoe might not be able to get me as far as I thought it would, so I've obviously explored other options, right? I've gone into Adidas, I've got the Asics, I've got a Puma, I've tried some Hokas, so after comparing and just like trying different shoes out and getting my thoughts on them, we kind of run to this first test in my case of just which one would kind of stick out a little bit more. So again, we'll briefly go over specs just for each one again. So like the Asics MetaSpeed Sky, 7.1 ounces in my size, puts it at about 200 grams on average. It's got about a 39 millimeter heel and then a 35 millimeter forefoot with a 5 millimeter offset, which in turn gives it sort of this lower, more natural ride in terms of shoes. And as a whole, the shoe gets a lot of praise for being an excellent marathon and long run style racing shoe. And it's something that unless your running form is in a good shape and you're not, doing too much heel striking or you're not supinating or overpronating too much, and even your biomechanics themselves are going to impact this shoe's ride with you. Like, there's a lot of things you need to get right in order for this shoe to feel right for you. That's just kind of where I've gotten to with the MetaSpeed Sky, and I knew it was going to take me a while to get to that point, right? So having that 5 millimeter offset means it's a lot more natural of a ride. Again, if you have some femoral anti-versions, so if your knees kind of cave in a little bit more, this is going to be a really good shoe for you. If you have a little bit of supination, the shoe is going to tend to pronate because, again, it has more of that natural kind of strike. Again, and then based on the structures, we do have that carbon plate that runs all the way across the shoe. Simplistic design, we got this like FF Turbo foam running across the entire shoe length. It's just the foam is sandwiched between both of these foam compounds that we can see here. And again, nothing too crazy going on. It's just kind of got this flat rubber just going all the way across. We do have some exposed foam as well. And as you can see, I've got a little bit of wear right there in the central area of the shoe, which we'll get to in a minute here as well. So in terms of other pieces, again, the upper pays a lot of, I guess, like homage to the original Nike Vaporfly X% 1, where it's that same style, kind of translucent mesh that's also both breathable but also flexible enough to give you a really good ride all the way across. The only downside of this is like running in water, that this, in my opinion and experience, like running with this type of mesh on top doesn't necessarily breathe very well. That's where you would need something like the X% 2 to kind of take over and get that sorted out. So yeah, and then again, we do have the gusseted tongue, and the heel doesn't have, it doesn't require too much support in my opinion, as long as you tie the shoe down fairly well. So that's kind of the immediate stuff with the MetaSpeed Sky 2, or Sky Plus in this case. And now we'll just move into the Puma Fast R-Nitro. What a weird Frankenstein of a shoe, right? So again, this shoe runs at about 9.1 ounces, so it's a little bit heavier. That's about 265 grams on average. We do have a heel height of about 40 millimeters and then a forefoot of about 32, giving it about an 8 millimeter offset, so much more of a high heel type of feel. But again, this is a shoe where if you have a little bit more complicated pieces of your form, like maybe you overpronate too much, the shoe's designed to kind of correct that if need be, right? And other things worth noting here is that, as you can see, the shoe's just wacky from start to finish. The carbon plate is present on the shoe. It's exposed right here in the central piece, and it runs through the heel and it runs through the forefoot and out through the front of the shoe as well, as you can see there. So the shoe there is designed ultimately, and now I've heard different things in like my comment section and people messaging me on Instagram with this one, that striking in like this mid to forefoot zone and then having that roll is ideal with the shoe. And just because, again, the way the rocker is designed and how much there is just kind of capped here in the tip of the shoe for you to roll off of. It's designed just to get as much roll and flex as possible and add just that like inch, maybe like 3/4 of an inch extra distance for you to kind of work with to increase efficiency potentially, so you're not like kicking as much harder as you are just rolling off the shoe, right? The compounds, we do have like Nitro Elite running across this foam all the way across. We also have it in this heel section, and I believe we have it in these smaller sections like right here by the foams, and it may be also the same compound that is running the central area of the exposed foam right there. Other things worth noting, again, we do have Puma Grip, which is like their rubber compound that is kind of, I guess, trademarked to them. It's right there in the heel caps, right there. We do have this Ultra Weave mesh, which kind of similar to the MetaSpeed Sky. It does pay its respects to the Vaporfly Next% 1, where it's breathable, it's flexible, not really totally waterproof, or it doesn't drain water quite well from personal experience, but it does provide a lot of flex, which is important when you're trying to get the fit of this shoe correct, right? And then again, the tongue is pretty much fixed to the shoe as this like one, I guess, plush section that runs across. We do have pull tabs for the shoe here as well, right here in the tip and then right here in the heel, and we do have a heel cap to provide additional reinforcement for heel lock. So those are your general specs. Let's talk about the shoes head to head. On your race day, or we'll ask this question first. On my race day, which shoe am I most likely going to run with? And this is a surprise answer for myself based on like the trend of me going towards Puma, because I'm actually going to go for the Asics MetaSpeed Sky personally, and here's why. So the Puma Nitro, or the Fast R-Nitro, is a highly ambitious shoe in my opinion. But there's a problem. Or there's a few, I guess, kinks to this shoe that need to get addressed before I can take it super seriously, right? First off, it's the price tag, right? At the time of this video, $260, about $200 from where I got it from. I think it was Fleet Feet where I bought this. And I know the Asics MetaSpeed Sky Paris is available, so that might be like the $250 version. So what? Not really part of this discussion here. The price tag is really high for this Frankenstein style of a shoe that has a couple of, not yellow flags, but red flags for myself. Number one, in the ride, what I'm experiencing is a lot of heat buildup in the forefoot area whenever I strike with the shoe and begin to roll across, you know, the carbon plate. And it's strange because I don't know where this like heat generation is building from. Is it from this rubber compound that's going into this thin piece of foam and then into the Nitro Elite and I feel it in my foot? Is it in the actual insole where my foot is just like constantly rubbing against it and I'm in turn building some heat on it? Is it, in addition to that, is it also the issue that the heel lock of the shoe is not perfect and it does move around? Like, these are serious questions and thoughts with the Fast R-Nitro at this point, because it's very hard to get something above 10K, even like 9 miles in this shoe, and I've been working with it, simply because it does heat up in the forefoot a lot. It's not the world's most comfortable ride, and the second red flag piece with it at this time is exactly this gap. So look at this gap, and then look at, let's get the identical shoe here. Let's grab this one. So we got both of the right foots, okay? Look at where the wear is mostly done on both shoes. So look at this one, and then look at this one again. Hopefully the angles of that worked. If you're looking from my perspective, I have a lot of wear right here in the central area of the shoe. I have some right about here, and then I have some in this area up here. Those are my like 3 points of massive wear. We have a gap right here, and this gap causes issues when I run. And what's specifically happening is my foot is sinking through this rubber, and actually I feel the edge of the carbon plate on my foot. Now there is the insole and this foam that's protecting me from it, but I feel myself sinking into it, which is causing issues because in the central area of my foot, I'm getting the support on like the pinky side of the shoe and then like the forefoot big toe side of the shoe, but the central area is sinking in. And that is highly unusual and it's highly uncomfortable. So that's one piece to address. Here, I guess so far, you know, you can see where the rubber is kind of, I guess, beginning to wear a little bit. Nothing too crazy at like less than 50 miles, and this one's at like almost 50 miles, maybe a little bit over, I think. And then in the toe box area, same kind of story. Hard to see any sort of wear and tear, but this central piece is the most important one for me to address, because that heat generation and this like gap causing my foot to sink through it and almost like it wants to get through the other side of the shoe is a big problem. So if I were Puma, again, with the shoe being almost 2 ounces heavier than the MetaSpeed Sky to begin with, this issue, like, if there's a way we can add some kind of foam just to cover this up, because, like, yeah, it's a cool, ambitious design, and it's cool because, like, you showcase the plate being exposed and all that, but, like, all jokes aside, I think this needs to be covered up, like, to be completely honest, at least from my personal experience with the ride. I just don't like that gap, okay? But everything else seems to be pretty cool with it, and I know that I mentioned this in my first impressions with this shoe, is that if you want to get violent with this thing, it will carry with you, right? So if you're going to start drilling and you want to put in some pace, this shoe will follow you in those directions it wants to go. It's sort of like the Tempo Next Percent from Nike. Like, what you put into it, you're going to get back and a little bit more, because the shoe has that, like, oh yeah, watch this kind of grit to it, whether it's the Puma Nitro Elite just kind of having that sync with the carbon plate, just the carbon plate structure itself just having that much more flex to play around with. There's like pieces of the shoe just work really well. But again, the heat in the toe box, this gap, and then the lockdown itself is causing some major concerns for me as like a race day type of shoe versus the MetaSpeed Sky, which, as we've kind of discussed and you can probably assume, is a much simpler build from the looks, just aesthetically, even though it takes a little bit of practice to understand what you're supposed to do in this shoe to get the most out of it, right? You don't want a heel strike. You don't want a forefoot strike. You need this kind of midfoot strike in the biggest piece of foam, right about there, right where it says like this fast FF turbo foam. You want your strike to be right about in this area where you have the biggest piece where the carbon plate is going to flex the best, and that's where you're going to get the attack from the shoe. So you can see I've been doing my best to get it in this area, and I have a little bit of the, I guess you can see a little bit of creasing on the foam in this area, so I got to turn it back just a little bit more, so I just have to be less extra with this shoe in order to get the most of it. But as a shoe that's been kind of sitting on my shelf for a few months now, it's finally coming around, and that's something that I'm looking forward to when I start taking this shoe further to, you know, marathon running and trying to take it for more road races that are coming up in my immediate future. So between the two, just right off the rip, I'm going to choose the MetaSpeed Sky based on potential, and then the Puma, just there's a lot of issues and red flags with it that have me concerned at this time with it. So again, if you agree or disagree with the assessment, let me know in the comments below. If you've used both shoes but you think there's something that I can improve with in the Puma Fast R-Nitro that can fix some of the issues I'm experiencing with it, again, let me know as well. But these are just my thoughts at this time. Maybe as I put more miles in this thing, I'll get used to certain things I don't like and it gets better, and maybe we'll have to revisit this review and kind of address what's changed to make this one better versus this one. So that's, I think, how we're going to leave it. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.